So just run npm start again like this, npm start, enter, and that should let you run it. Okay, so it's already running for me, so I don't need this. So as you can see, I have it here. So now if I add a to do, so click do now, should have the icon over there. As you can see, we have the X icon. So now when the user clicks this icon, I want to delete this to do. So let's go ahead and do that. So if I go to do item and on click, so when the user clicks on the icon, I want to implement an arrow function, and then this arrow function just calls. So I'm going to get props.remove to do. I'm going to be passing in a function just like I passed it in for to do form when we did add to do. So I'm going to do the same thing for remove to do. So on click, we don't need this arrow function, we could just do remove to do. Just call props.remove to do like that. And then I can go to app.js and I need to pass in remove to do. So for each one, I need to pass in remove to do equals remove to do, just like we done for the add to do over here. And I need to make this remove to do function now. So just make it. So const remove to do equals arrow function, and we need to pass in the to do. So we'll be receiving an ID of that to do, so we can actually filter the to dos and not put in the, or remove the to do with the ID. So over here we need to pass in to do.id. So props.to-do.id, because we have the it's getting passed in as props. So you're gonna have to keep doing props.props. So the best way to do this is const object destructuring. So we'll do this. So we'll do to do equals props, and now over here, instead of doing props.to-do.text, we can just do to-do.text, and same thing here. And as for props.remove to do, we can also do that as well. So remove to do, and now we don't need the props dot, we can just use remove to do. So we're just taking remove to do from props and also taking to do from props. Okay, so now we're passing in the ID. Now if we go to do form, sorry, app.js, so and then over here it's calling this function, and we're getting the ID of the to do. So now what we want to do is make a new array called updated to dos, and we're going to set that to, we're going to get a copy of the state, so of the to dos, all of the to dos, and then we're going to do the filter function on it. So we'll do .filter, and then that's going to give us a to do for each one. So it's going to, we can do arrow function. You could do a normal function as well, but it's better to do arrow functions. So we can do an arrow function and get the to do, and then we want to do id is not equal to id. So if the id of this to do is not equal to the id that we have just received, then we'll return this to do, and it will be stored in update to do. So that way all the to dos will be returned to updated to dos and will be stored in here, other than the one with the ID that it wants to be removed. So it will be removed that way. And now I want to set to dos, the state, this, and just pass in updated to dos. So now the other to do is gone. So now if I save this and I remove the to do, so if I refresh, we don't need to refresh, but add the to do, there's an issue. So let's check that issue. So let's go to inspect element. So I'm keeping these issues inside the tutorial because debugging is a big part of web development, so I'm going to keep it here. So cannot update a component app while rendering a different component to do item. To locate the bad set state, call inside to do item, follow the stack trace as described. So the issue is, it's got to do with removing a to do, because it's said bad set state, which is the set to dos that we just added, and so it's got to do with the remove to do basically. So let's just double check our code. So we have const remove to do, sorry, this is let. That should be right. This should be right. So let's go to do item. Oh, okay, so we need to do this as an arrow function because we're passing in a to do ID. So like that. Now let's see if the error is fixed. So continue, for example, add to do. As you can see now it's working. So now if I remove a to do, there we go, it works. Any errors? Let's check. No errors. Perfect. So now let's go on to completing a to do. So let's go to our to do item.js and let's add the icon. So we're gonna have, let's see what icon we want to use. So let's go to React icons and search check, and we'll just use, for example, this one, bi check circle. I like this one. So Control V, close it. We need to import this as well. So remember how I said we need to import it from React icon / the first two letters. So Control V from React icons / so we have bi over here, so I need to do /bi, and now let's see if it's working. So there we go. Now we have the icon here. This is the check icon. I just want some spacing between these two icons, so I'm just going to give this this delete one a style. So I'll give style equals, pass in an object, margin. So styling is pretty much like CSS. So margin to the right, so margin right, and I'll give it 5. So if you do 5, it automatically takes it as pixels. You could put it in a string and do 5 pixels, or no, there's no issues with that. But you could just do 5, and that would fix it, and that would do pixels. There we go. So now we have some margin between them, much better. Okay, so now let's implement this complete to do. So I want to do the same thing. So also want to give this class name icon. We don't really need to because it's already white. So even the delete one, because the icon is just making it white. So we don't need that, do we? Yeah, we don't. So we can also delete that from app.css, this icon. So to do item, now we can do on click, call it arrow function, and then complete to do, which we're going to pass in as props. So, and we'll also want to pass in the ID, just like we done with the remove to do, and we're going to receive it from props. So we have an error right now. That's because we're not passing in the prop. So let's actually do that. So let's go to app.js, and then complete to do is equal to complete to do, and we need to actually implement this. So let's do this. Const Control V equals arrow function. We're going to be taking an ID, so we can filter, so we can find the to do and then update that specific one. So let's start implementing this complete to do. So just to check if we're getting the ID. So let's actually console.log the ID when we click the complete button. So let's check that. So if I refresh, inspect element, console, add to do, click that complete button, and just check out info. As you can see, we are getting it. So it's console logging the ID. So this console log, we can remove it. It's from add to do. Yeah, we don't need that, and we don't need this console log anymore. So now let's actually complete to dos. So let's make a new variable called updated to dos, and for this one we're going to map on all the to dos in state. So all of our to dos, and for each one to do arrow function, and then what we want to do is check if the to do dot id is equal to this id. So if this to do, the id of this to do is equal to this id, then that's the to do that we want to update. We want to make it as completed. So we found the to do now. Then now what we want to do is that we want to do to do dot completed, and we want to set that to not to do dot completed. So whatever it was, so this is basically toggling it, not really completing it. So if it was completed, then we'll do not, so it means the opposite of what it was. So if it was true, it will make it false. If it was false, it will make it true. Okay, so then after that, after we do the if statement, we need to return to do, return it back to the updated to dos. So now updated to dos should have our updated to dos, and then we want to set state, set to dos, and pass in the updated to dos. Okay, so it should be working, but we need to actually change. We want to give it a strike through. So if the to do is actually completed, we want to give it a strike through. So how do we do that? So we'll go to this div class name, and what we want to do is do this. So do it like this, so we can actually otherwise if you do a string, then you can't actually use variables. So we want to use the variables to check if the to do is completed. So we'll do to do dot completed, and then we can do this, the question mark, and if it is completed, so the first, and then we'll have a colon and do this. So if it is completed, then our classes are going to be to do row, and so to do row is our main class, and then we'll also have a completed class. Otherwise, if it's so, this is if it is completed, and then we do colon, which means otherwise. If it's not completed, then we'll just do to do row. So it will be as if it's a normal to do. But let me just check if the class is actually completed, because let me just see. To do row complete, sorry, not completed. So it just gives it text decoration line through, so it strikes through the text. So complete. So now we're just basically checking if the to do is completed, then we give it the class complete. And if it's not completed, then we'll just keep it as to do row. So now let's see if this is working. So let me refresh. Hello, to do, complete. There we go, strike through. And then if I click it, it's not strike through because it set it back to false, so it's not completed. Okay, so now we're done with the tutorial, and we just want to have a HR over here, a line to separate between the form and the to-dos. So just go ahead and do that. This is just for styling purposes. So to do form, under the to do form, I want to do a HR, and I want to give it a class name of separator, because I have made that class in app.css, so separator. Now if I refresh, as you can see, we have this separator, which is really nice. So now we can add to-dos successfully. We can complete them, uncomplete them, and we can remove them.